From 2025, Cinema 100 welcomes you to 1932, a year marked by resilience and reinvention. The Great Depression was in full swing, casting its shadow over every corner of the United States. Breadlines stretched down city blocks, and unemployment reached record highs, yet the silver screen offered a sanctuary. Hollywood was booming, a dream factory churning out escapism for a weary public. This was the golden age of pre-code cinema, where filmmakers pushed boundaries with stories of crime, passion, and rebellion. Studios like MGM, Paramount, and Warner Brothers were thriving, and stars like Greta Garbo and Clark Gable dominated the screens. Meanwhile, the first inklings of what would become the Hays Code began stirring, as critics of Hollywood's perceived decadence demanded reform. In this precarious time, the industry evolved quickly, however. Sound films had taken over, but experimentation still reigned. Whether through groundbreaking cinematography or daring social commentary, 1932 wasn't just another year in filmmaking. It was a year where Hollywood, like the nation itself, was trying to define its identity amid the chaos. And oh, what a story it told. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 1932 draft. The year is 1932, and Cinema 100 just keeps rolling along. Here we are, Will, in the year 1932. We've done 1927, 28, 29, 30, and 31. If my counting is correct, we're 5 years deep into this 100-year project. How's your stamina, man?
Oh, my stamina is fine. I think you and I are both running into some summer blues here. Just all sorts of stuff going on. Hard to stay on a consistent pattern, but so far so good, I think.
Yeah, it's been a good summer for that. I think it's important to kind of take those days off and just, either regroup and make sure that we're, putting together the best show we can put together, and it's not forced or rushed because we were spent doing family things earlier in the day. I think we've done 5 years, but we've done 27 films, and that's pretty impressive. When I look back at these films that we didn't know existed or we'd never seen prior, because I'm pretty sure outside of maybe one or two for me, these have all been first watches. Anything for you been a rewatch up to this point?
The only did we rewatch something? I feel like I rewatched one thing.
Okay.
Now,
Yeah, I thought there was one on there for you too. Yeah.
Yeah. I know I might be thinking of Fritz Lang here because I saw Metropolis, but I don't think I've had any rewatches now that I'm thinking about it. So.
Yeah, and Fritz Lang is going to come up quite a bit here in today's show because we are going to talk about our 1931 Oscars long before we get to our 1932 draft picks. And Will, just kind of your thoughts over on the year 1931, because me personally, when I looked back and I was putting together this, kind of our list here of, best picture candidates and just kind of the movies that we watched, I was like, holy crap, for me personally, there was two masterpieces from the year 1931. What say you? What was your thoughts on that year?
Yeah, no, we were kind of talking about sports here off camera, and the thing that comes to mind here is last year was our draft was a high floor, right? There wasn't a lot of the bad that we watched. There was some bad kind of mixed in, and but mostly what we watched last year was pretty good stuff. I think everything we watched had at least something to take away from it. So if that's that's a good draft there.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I'm looking at now the best picture candidates, and you're right. When I look at these, we were able to avoid in old Arizona, or we were able to avoid the Moroccos, you know what I mean? Which is what we want. We want to kind of keep which I'll full disclosure, this year is going to be difficult, I think, because there's so many new players coming to, the forefront as far as actors and actresses. I was looking at kind of the lineups and I'm like, holy crap, there's not a lot of names here that, like there were in 1931. 1931, we got introduced to Cary Grant. He was in a couple of our films. We had another Norma Shear movie, a Joan Crawford, Peter Lorre, right? So like we got these names where in 1932, and maybe it's just the select movies that I've picked to nominate, and maybe you've seen some of the bigger names coming up on some of the movies you've chosen, but I thought I went and looked through quite a bit. I didn't see those big names like we've been used to the last couple of years. What about you?
I've got a few here of people that we've at least seen before. Like I
Okay.
know one of the movies that I'm thinking about is got some Clark Gable going on,
Okay.
and then I think there's a Gary Cooper. I don't want to give too much away here, but
Okay.
there's some names getting repeated here, and then my favorite supporting actor along the way is going to pop up in one of the movies I nominate as well. Yeah, no, there's some crossover here, but agree, there's a lot of new stuff going on for sure.
Well, it's 1932. It's not 1982, so we're still a ways to go, and I'm sure there's going to be a hell of a lot of firsts as we go. Let's talk about those Best Picture candidates. We're not going to choose Best Picture yet, but let's just talk about the movies that we did watch in 1931. We start off with 1931's Charlie Chaplin's City Lights. After that was Dracula and Frankenstein. We did a double feature on that. We did The Front Page. We did M. We did The Public Enemy. We did a double feature on Clarence Brown's Free Soul and Clarence Brown's Possessed. Very good, I thought, kind of mixed bag, a diverse selection of films, a lot of genres being thrown at us. And I think that's important that we kind of keep that feeling as we go forward, because 1932, there's kind of this influx of international films, too, that start kind of making their presence known. And a lot of people consider them in hindsight to be classics coming out of this year, and I think it's important that we at least identify that and recognize it on the show today, because maybe we don't draft any of them, or maybe we do, but if we don't, it's important to notice that France and Japan are really starting to get in the game from the the film industry and make waves. So
Yeah.
anything else from the year 1931 before we get to the Oscars?
No, I think you kind of already said my sentiment here is that there's really two standouts that two films that are going to stick with me. I think we're probably going to be talking about two films a lot, at least for the most part. But other than that, I mean, yeah, I really think the movies that we watched were good enough to have been drafted. Whereas, like I said earlier in the first few couple years, we've got like two or three that maybe we didn't need to watch.
Yeah, and I think because in about 3 years here, we're going to start doing our, we're going to rank our top 10 of our movies that we've watched so far. We're also going to start picking our favorite years, right? Kind of ranking where we think 31 compared to 28, 29, 30, the whole thing. And I got to tell you right now, just off the top of my head, without actually looking at it, I think 31 is, if not one, it's two. And I think the only one that would compete with it is maybe 1929. Unless you have a different year in your mind. But I just think of I think of A Man with a Movie Camera. I think of Blackmail. I think of Hallelujah, which it's so funny, just I don't want to get on a tangent here, but just Hallelujah has stuck with me. I find myself thinking about that movie quite a bit, whether it be the actor's performance that we got and just, because it wasn't a perfect movie by any means and it had its flaws, but there were some really good things that came out of that film, which now kind of reinforces how good 29 was for me. So I don't know about you, but that's things like that I didn't think would stick with me have kind of found a way to, stick with me. So.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I think this year is up there for me. I think off the top of my head, this is probably top three.
Okay.
But I think whatever your Man with a Movie Camera is in, is that 29?
29. Yeah.
Yeah, that one's probably going to be up there for me because that's probably my favorite movie I've watched so far.
Interesting. Holy crap. I can't wait to get to 1935 when we start picking some movies. Let's go to the Oscars, my friend. We, in the real time, 1932, we were still doing split years at the Academy Awards. It's not until, I believe, 1935 where we start getting a full calendar year. But as far as what we're doing a full calendar year, and we're doing only the movies in which we watch. So, Will, let's save Best Director and Best Picture for the end.
Okay.
Along with our new category, which is Most Memorable Scene. We'll do that at the end as well. Let's take these big four. Where would you like to start? Best Supporting Actor, Best Supporting Actress, or Best Actor, Best Actress? Where would you like to start?
Let's get supporting out of the way because both of them are a little rough on my end.
Okay, I've got some. I want you to fill in the blank where you have them.
Sure.
Here's the nominees that I have for best. Well, let's start with supporting actress because I found this to be the hardest one to do. Okay, I have two. I have two.
Yeah.
Two names, and I want you to give me names that you think fill or fit the card if I don't have them. So for me personally, best supporting actress, I have Helen Chandler, who played Mina Seward in the movie Dracula, if you remember her character. And then I also have Mary Bryan, who played Peggy Grant in the movie The Front Page. Now, tell me any other characters or supporting actresses, because I just wasn't quite sure. And maybe
Sure.
we're going to debate on, I'll give you an example, like a Jean Harlow, right? She just didn't do enough. She's a big name. She just wasn't in the movie enough to even have an impact. You could have wrote her out and it wouldn't have changed the movie. So tell me
Sure.
what you got.
Yeah, so I think one of the things, if you pay attention to the Academy Awards even a little bit, you know there's like campaigns, right? So you
Yeah.
understand like sometimes there's some category manipulation. Sometimes it's called category fraud. I think a good example of this, right, was like um, Leonardo DiCaprio this year. I think they were trying to push him for Best Supporting Actor to kind of stay out of the way for Lily Gladstone. He
Yeah.
didn't get nominated, but anyways, where I'm going with this is I might be committing a little bit of category fraud here. I don't know, but I'm gonna nominate a blind girl from City Lights.
Interesting.
I'm wondering if that works for you because I really obviously Charlie Chaplin, the Tramp, is our lead. And does a blind girl qualify for the lead actress? I don't know. She's close, but is she more of a supporting character here? Is she a lead? I kind of feel like it works as a supporting character here, and it also helps my argument for having someone worth voting for. So that's my nominee.
Okay, I am going to just stooge what I have right now. I actually have, her name is Virginia Sherrill, and I actually have her for my best actress as
Oh,
the
okay.
lead. And it's funny because she's the only one name I wrote down where I put a question mark next to, because again, our minds are pretty similar, because you're right. That is the question. Charlie Chaplin is the clear lead in that movie. However, the narrative, she would be his counter in that
Sure.
movie, right? So it felt like, as far as females go, it felt like she was the lead in that movie. Where I put someone like the eccentric millionaire was a supporting character.
Okay.
I felt like Virginia Sherrill had enough on screen time, even though we would divert away from her. I thought she was the lead in that movie. Now, I completely understand why you think she could be a supporting actress, so I'm going to allow you to live in your world if you allow me to live in mine.
I'm just wondering if we're allowed to do this. If we can have her be best supporting and best actress.
Hey,
No,
we make the rules in this world, buddy. I don't know. What do you
we do.
think, honestly, what do you think the Academy would look at her as? So you think the Academy would have chalked her up as a supporting actor?
Well, that's what my question, I guess, is can does a movie need to have two leads, or do we have the ability to kind of say Charlie Chaplin's the lead and everything else is kind of supporting the film around him? So that's if I were driving a campaign here for her, I would think she had a better chance at a supporting actress because I don't know if she had enough screen time, like say Norma Shearer or Joan Crawford did, to
Right.
really cement as a lead. So that's my argument.
So I take your argument and I understand all the rationale. I would say a movie doesn't need two leads. I would definitely say that a movie can just be like, for example, there's only two characters in the movie Buried. You remember that movie with Ryan
Sure.
Reynolds and then the
Yeah.
person on the other end of the phone?
Yep.
Um, actually, there might be three or four. He might have made a couple different phone calls, but he's the only lead, right? Clearly the only lead. Everybody else is just a supporting voice. So you don't need to there. However, I think, I guess I'm just going off of the actual maybe plot of the movie. So in this case, I took Virginia Sherrill over a Joan Crawford, over a Norma Shearer, over some of these other actresses, because I felt like, yes, on screen time, clearly Norma Shearer is the one. Joan
Yep.
Crawford is the one. No debating that. I just felt, as far as like the plot that was given to us, if I was to take Virginia Sherrill as the lead in that movie, I chose her simply for the reason that I felt like she had the most impactful performance. So I could put her in Best Supporting Actress. I did not. I chose Helen Chandler simply because I had to choose somebody.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm sad that I don't have a better argument for her case. I chose Helen Chandler. So
Okay, gotcha. All right. Well, no, I think we both have valid points here, and it would really just come down to like where she actually ended up, if she was supporting or if she was uh, lead put into the lead actress category. So, but I think it. I think if we're both right here, and I'm allowed to take her as supporting, and you take her as lead, then I think that does her some justice here to kind of prove the point that she was probably, I mean, hands down the best female performance from this year.
yeah, I totally agree. And it's so interesting because we were kind of begging for some male actors, whether it be Best Supporting Actor or Best Actor. We were begging for a few years to kind of have performances come out, to draft these movies that actually had performances that we care about. And now we're kind of seeing a little bit of a shift a little bit. It's like I find the female side to be a little thin this year, where I'm stacked to 8 candidates on both supporting and actor side. So just a little bit of a role reversal. Why don't you give me your best actress from this year, since you already know mine?
Yeah, so I was choosing here between Joan Crawford and Norma Shear because I think we kind of drove home in our podcast about both of these movies that the faults were with the scripts and not
Yes.
necessarily with the performances. And I think I went with Joan Crawford because her performance was more consistent front to back. I think I'll always fall on Norma Shearer's side as being the better actress, but in these two performances, Joan Crawford, I think is the winner here for me.
Well, we share the same brain, my friend. Even though I chose Virginia Sherrill, if I was to play your game here and flip her over to the supporting actress side, I would choose Joan Crawford. And it's interesting because then that would make these two ladies 1-1, right? And I'm sure we're going to get to a little bit more of them as we go. But I'm the same as you. I have a soft spot for Norma Shear. When she comes on my TV, she owns everybody in the frame. And I
Yeah.
don't necessarily believe, like, what we have a great common denominator here, right? Cary Grant. Okay. Cary Grant was just in both Possessed and A Free Soul. And I felt like Cary Grant was a little bit more, and it could be his character, right? It could be the character because he was definitely more likable in the movie Possessed than he was in A Free Soul. He was a criminal in A Free Soul, but in the movie Possessed, he's a gentleman that we all kind of aspire to be. But I felt like, not that Joan Crawford kind of felt it aside, but I felt like they were equals. I don't always feel that way when Norma Shear shares a screen with someone, and Cary Grant did, and I felt like Norma Shear is the clear winner in those scenes. I felt like she overacted a little bit. We've talked about that in the episode. So I agree with you, Joan Crawford, a little bit more consistent of a performance. So
Yeah.
I got a little crush on Norma Shear. I'm just going to say it. It just is what it is. Is it weird to have a crush on someone that's clearly been dead for hundreds or at least 50, 60
No,
years?
I don't think so. I'm right there with you.
All right, Norma Shear. Smoke show. Here we go. We move on. Best Supporting Actor. I have 7 nominees. And the truth be told, you could have, if we went off the front page, you could have listed 4 or 5 guys, those newspaper guys. I forget the one character that kind of just was like going through life kind of half-ass, and he was funny. He could have been one. I didn't write down any of them. If you did, let me know. Here's who I have. Boris Karloff, the monster from Frankenstein. Harry Myers, the eccentric millionaire from City Lights. Dr. Seward, the gentleman that played in the movie Dracula. Adolphe Menjou played Walter Burns in the movie The Front Page. Donald Cook, who played Tom Powers. He played James Cagney's brother, if you remember, in the movie The Public Enemy. I have Lionel Barrymore, who played Stephen Ash, which is Norma Shear's father in the movie A Free Soul. And then I have Leslie Howard, who played Dwight Winthrop in the movie A Free Soul. That is the person that Norma Shear, was in love with in the beginning, left, and then found her way back to. So anybody that I'm missing, anybody that you think fits the bill here, and maybe I didn't even name your best supporting actor.
Yeah.
Did I miss him?
Well, I'm doing this category thing, right? Where I'm kind of like flirting around with what the different definitions are because of those people, like you said, Lionel Barrymore, and I think that's probably the best performance of the group that you listed. I would almost argue that he's actually the lead male character in this film because he has the crucial scene
At
at
the
the
end of the
end.
movie.
He's the main pushback for Norma Shear's character. Like the given most of the relationship that matters in this film is the father and daughter relationship. So that's here. I almost would argue that the better supporting choice would be Clark Gable's character because he's kind of in the periphery in a lot of these main scenes or dead. So I I had Clark Gable down here as one of my options. The other one that I was kind of unsure of was in M with Peter Lorre. Is he the main character in that movie?
Uh, I would argue very, very much for Peter Lorre being the main character in that movie.
Okay.
He's given the most significant, like you said when you're making your argument for Stephen Ash, or for the Stephen Ash character by Lionel Barrymore. I think Peter Lorre, because if not him, I guess who would be my question. I guess maybe the detective that's kind of trying to solve the case, but I don't think he's even in enough scenes for that to be the case. So I would say Peter Lorre. Once we finally get to Peter Lorre's the reveal, I think he carries the rest of that movie, in my opinion. So
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I'm curious if Fritz Lang here might say that he wasn't making a movie that needed a lead character because it's a moral story. It's not necessarily about the character. It's about
sure.
character traits. But I think you're probably right. So if you're right on that, then I'm probably going to go. My choice for supporting actor is going to be Clark Gable for A Free Soul.
And I need to make a correction real quick. I said Cary Grant.
Oh.
No. You're right. It's Clark Gable.
Oh. Okay.
I was just saying in my last when I was talking about Norma Shear versus Joan Crawford, I referenced Cary Grant being in both those movies. It's Clark Gable. Thank you for that. Second note I wanted to touch on, which I thought you said something very interesting because you're right. When we got done finishing the movie A Free Soul, we thought that movie was more about a father-daughter, right? Mm-hmm. We thought, wow, we left this movie. We went into it. It's being marketed as a romance between Clark Gable and Norma Shear. But when we left, we're like, this movie is about father and a daughter. So that's kind of tough to know what category to put Lionel Barrymore in. And I'm with you because if that's the case, then you're right. He should shift into the lead, best actor role. It ends with us as kind of having this pushback with it. This movie that just came out this year, it's based on, a very popular book right now by Colleen Hoover. It ends with us. Blake Lively's in this movie and a few others. But what happens is this movie is being advertised as a love story. The problem is it's a story about domestic abuse. And when you leave there, it's like, okay, who becomes these main characters? Does the lead male take a step back because he's not what is being portrayed to us or at least marketed to us? So it's kind of the same thing here with The Free Soul, right? It's just like, What is the actual movie and how do I categorize these things? So if you're going to go with Lionel Barrymore as your choice, I did not choose him. I actually chose Harry Myers, the gentleman that played the eccentric millionaire from City Lights. And I'll tell you why. I don't know that his performance was like as impactful as far as like big grandeur speeches. But I thought what Charlie Chaplin does so well is physical comedy because he's giving us silent movies, right? I thought Harry Myers, for the majority of that film, physically matched. In every scene he was in, matched Charlie Chaplin. And I think that has to be so incredibly hard to do. So I went with Harry Myers as my choice for Best Supporting Actor.
Yeah, no, that's a great choice, and it's probably better than mine. I just to make sure we're on the same page, I want Clark Gable for A Free Soul. That is my choice, not Lionel Barrymore. So
thank you, yeah.
But yeah, I think his performance. I didn't even really think about his performance. I think because I was so kind of captivated by the two
by Charles.
Yeah. Yep. So that's really what it comes down to. Is I hadn't really considered his performance, but you're right. That matching of Charlie Chaplin's tempo is really important to kind of the story unfolding. So
Yep, totally agree. Let's move on then to our final of the actors is Best Actor, and you kind of alluded to where you're going. Let's give the category or the nominees if we can. This is what I have. If I'm missing anybody, let me know. I went with Charlie Chaplin in the movie City Lights. I put down James Cagney in the movie The Public Enemy. Peter Lorre in movie M. Colin Clive, the gentleman that played Dr. Frankenstein. Bela Lugosi, the gentleman that played Dracula. Pat O'Brien from the movie The Front Page. Remember, he was kind of the well sought out, don't leave me. I forget the character's name, but don't leave me and move on with your life. And then I put Clark Gable. I put him down twice, but if we're removing him from the movie A Free Soul, I'm just going to put him down once from the movie Possessed. So that's 8 characters right there. Anybody I'm missing?
I don't think so. You might be able to argue that Boris Karloff could be here, but I think he fits better in the supporting actor. So really, I don't think so. I think this is a pretty good list. Comprehensive.
I agree. And it sounds like you went with Charles Chaplin with yours for City Lights. I'm going to give you the floor. Take it. Why? Because I did not choose him, but I got to tell you, it was so damn close.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that he's able to put together this performance while also doing literally everything else, from directing to writing to probably sound design and writing music for the movie. I mean, and all of that, he's able to give this performance where, we have just a transcendent final scene. It's hard for me not to pick him. So.
Yeah, and I probably should pick him because you're right. I mean, he's in almost every scene, right? At least if just off the top of my head, I'm sure he's in 98% of the movie, right? So that's another thing too, to be that on in every frame. So I'm with you. I get your argument. I have no holes in it, and it would be my honorable mention, if not my 1A to 1B, right? Because I have to make a decision. I went with Peter Lorre, and I think a lot of the reason is I felt he had the most impactful thing of dialogue that I've heard so far in the journey of what we've been doing in 27 films we've watched. Again, that could be the writers, but so often all right, this is how I rationalize this, Will, and you tell me what you think. Okay. I was on the mower today, kind of hemming and hawing which way I should go. And this is the reason I went this way. If you take a bad singer or if you take the wrong genre of music and they sing a song that is well written, you're going to miss it, right? You're going to miss the lyrics. You're going to miss the wonderful thing that the writers put together. If you have the right person, it amplifies everything, right? So that's kind of how I rationalized Peter Lorre. I was like, the writing clearly stands out here above everything we've seen so far. That final monologue he gave, but it also needed the right dance partner. And I just thought because of that scene, it nudged him over what Charlie Chaplin did for me, only because of maybe the more serious nature of it. Maybe that's why. So.
Yeah, no, I get where you're coming from. I'd argue that where the City Lights ends up is pretty serious. I think, they take some lightheartedness along the way, but by the time you get to the end and you kind of see the social commentary that he's making, I think it turns from lighthearted to something a little bit more, a little deeper than that. So
not even a little. I think a lot. I think you're right. It's a lot deeper. It's It's. I'm never gonna not think of that final scene. I'm never gonna not think about the movie in its totality now because of the final scene. I've done so far, and even in today, like I was asking myself this way after we first watched it, like how many final scenes of movies kind of wrap up a movie, not just wrap it up so well, but like just the final scene of a movie made us think completely different about a movie than how we thought about that movie for 95% of it. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. No, that's an interesting um, thought experiment to kind of maybe think about and come back
Yeah.
with some ideas, because I can't think of any off the top of my head. I think of Inglorious Bastards a ton when I'm thinking about great scenes, but that's usually because it's probably our Inglorious Bastards that has the best opening scene of all time. Um,
So good.
I'm not sure if there's any. Dark Knight's got a pretty good opening scene, but there's something about that first scene in Inglorious Bastards that just sticks with you. Um, and but the end, like, yeah, I think it'd be a fun little experiment to do, or maybe a special episode where we could kind of pull top 5 or top 10 favorite scenes.
Yeah, no, that's a great way. We should do that. We should come back to that. Just real quick, just got to get my thoughts in. I love the Dark Knight opening scene. It really sets a tone for the movie. But Inglorious Bastards, the table scene with the Jews underneath the porch,
Mm-hmm.
it somehow what it did is it used historic context. It used our empathy on that historic event, and it created tension so quick. I mean, we're
Mm-hmm.
10 minutes in the movie, and all of a sudden we're like, holy shit, where's this movie gonna go? Right?
Yeah.
It was so wonderfully done. It was so wonderfully
Yeah.
done.
Well, it's
So
not just that either. It's you get right away how much of a prick this guy is. He pulls out that giant
you, you mind if I smoke mine?
yeah. So it's like got some humor mixed in there, but you get exactly what this movie is within
Yeah.
those first 10 minutes, and
Yeah.
all timer.
Well, we say buongiorno to that topic. Let's move on to the next one. We've got Best Director. Best Director. We have, here's all the candidates for Best Director. Charlie Chaplin, City Lights. James Whale for the movie Frankenstein. Louis Milestone for the movie The Front Page. Todd Browning for the movie Dracula. Fritz Lang for the movie M. Clarence Brown directed 2 of our films. And then William Wellman for The Public Enemy. I'm going to go first.
Okay.
I'm so glad that we were able to watch this movie, because it seems that there was not much more to come from Fritz Lang after this. So I went with Fritz Lang for what you said prior about making the argument about whether or not there even was a lead in this story, because it's about so many other things, and the story is told so well, not just told well, shot well. Every shot makes sense to the story. I love the reveal of Peter Lorre, but I also love the way they kind of hid him early on and just used shadows and reflections. This movie stands out for me above and beyond all the other ones, maybe outside of Charlie Chaplin's City Lights, because to me they're 1A and 1B of this year. I could have went the other way and just kind of had a City Lights just kind of own everything. I decided to go with M, only because I just was blown away by the whole movie.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think that's my argument for M as well, because that's, or I should say Fritz Lang. Fritz Lang's my favorite director, best director from this year. I think from front to back, this movie is near perfect, whereas City Lights is pretty close, but there's lags. Like, I think we talked specifically about that middle 10 to 15 minutes where he's kind of dabbling in different trades and going in boxing and trying to get money, and it's just a little bit too long in that middle section. So because there's that minor dip, I think Fritz Lang would take the cake here.
Yep, totally agree. Not much more I can add to it. I think Fritz Lang was an OG. Let's move on to Best Picture. I'm going to ask you this because I went with M as well. I mean, all the categories or all the movies are there from what we watched. I went with M. It sounds like you went with M. Make the argument for why M over City Lights. Is it just because of what you said, because of the lull, and you thought this movie kind of hit every beat? Is it have something to do with the actual subject matter? Does that play a part when you choose these things?
Sure. I mean, whenever we hit on this quite a bit in the podcast, but whenever there's a topic or an argument or a critique about a subject, and there's not a clear definition of like how I feel about it, or maybe I should say that a little better. When both sides have extremely valid points, and it's hard to say like, yes, I agree with this one and not that one. When when you feel torn between
Yeah.
the two arguments in this movie, and to walk that line is incredible. I mean, there's not many movies that can do this. Most movies end up in a moral position. This one
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily, and I think that's important. When you can tell a story that allows you to see the point of view of two different sides and both of them be valid, I think that's commendable. And put together all the technical stuff here. That's, just the way he shoots those first few scenes where the child's missing, and then the chase scenes where the lighting is, he's trying to hide in the shadows and they're
Yeah.
looking for him. It's a masterpiece.
It is a masterpiece. It is. Um, I feel like a lot of times you can argue, like you can make the argument that okay, he doesn't take a perspective. He gave both sides, but he doesn't give us a take, right? But that's not the case here. He's so good at making each side compelling that he leaves it up to you to decide where the line is and where the right and wrong is. Where sometimes movies give you both sides or both endings or whatever, both takes, because they don't really know what direction the movie should go in, so they kind of do it as a cop out. This is not the case. So this is the case where you can do it effectively and elevate the movie. So yeah, I think M is the best movie of the year, and City Lights would have been my close second.
Yeah, I mean, they're both 5-star movies to me. It's hard to start when you get into that territory. It's hard to delineate. I think there's just a few minor things that make M kind of stand out a little bit more than City Lights. And maybe we could talk about best moments now, because I think I have a few nominees. So both one each from this movie, for one from each movie.
Well, I thought we should do this then. So let's go through the movies and way we watched them, and we'll nominate the scenes. So I started off with City Lights, the best memorial or most memorable scene. I have the ending, obviously.
Yeah.
Dracula. The most memorable scene from the movie Dracula is the reveal of Dracula coming down the steps. I don't know if you have something different, but to me, the way he kind of revealed into the shadows and then back into the light, I thought was the most thing that stood out the most.
With you. Yep.
Okay. Frankenstein. The most memorable scene to me is "It's alive! It's alive!" The historic dialogue that comes there. There's a few other scenes that I'll remember from the movie, but I think that one's the most historically significant. Do you have a different one?
You're probably right. Mine that I wrote down for this movie was when the dad is carrying the girl through the street.
Yep.
I thought that was really powerful, because everyone, you've got the party and I think it's like a wedding party of some sort going on, and he's just, you can just tell that the life has dropped out of him, and he's got the girl,
and everything got quiet. That was
Yep.
Yes, that was a great scene. You're right. That definitely deserves to be on this list. Totally agree. Front page. To me, it was just I can't remember like a scene. I was just enthralled by the whole thing. I liked a lot of the camera movements early on, the one takes that they did and stuff. But like as far as a memorable scene, I'm not going to remember any particular scene from the movie.
Okay. Yeah, the scene when Adolphe Menjou, am I saying that correctly?
Adolphe Menjou.
Yeah, so when he finally shows up and they're face to face,
Yeah.
the main character and him, from that kind of point, the next 15 to 20 minutes, it's pretty good writing, because they just keep
Yeah.
going back and forth. That was probably my favorite scene. But yeah, it was one of those movies that felt a little bit nonstop, where it's hard to kind of say one scene ends here. And
Yeah.
so I'm with you.
Yeah, I'm just trying to will I remember anything about it 5 years from now? I don't. I mean, the way my memory's going, I might not remember anything about any of these movies 5 years from now. But I like to think I will. Will. So I'm going on the idea of optimism here.
Yeah.
After that, M. We've already discussed M in the scenes that M. The final scene is just done so damn well, from
Yeah.
the way it's acted to the way it's even the environment, the way it's set up with everybody, kind of like this kangaroo court being
Yep.
held by criminals, and they get to say what is right and what's wrong somehow. And then you get this kind of hand-picked lawyer who's trying to defend Peter Lorre by
Right.
telling everybody about these criminals and what they've done. This guy just committed murders. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's just really well done. Anything else from that movie?
The only thing the opening scene is really powerful, where you're just kind of seeing emptiness and shot after shot.
Love that.
It's real close, but I think you're right. The best scene here is the kangaroo court.
A Free Soul. I'll tell you what it's not. It's not the 15 minutes that we spent in the woods. I know that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what I would choose from these next two movies, A Free Soul and Possessed, as far as scenes that stand out to me. I'm having a hard time really remembering anything memorable as far as like impactful scenes to me. Now,
Yeah, like,
you tell me what you have, because I'm sure you
yeah,
have something. I just don't.
yeah. Lionel Barrymore's speech at the end, where he's kind of admitting to all of his flaws and it being his fault that Norma Shear is, going down this path, and everything kind of falls back to him. That's a very good scene. Again, I think our problem with it is everything that kind of leads to it just feels a little fraught and
Yeah.
not quite working well. So even though it's a good scene, it's hard to like really say it's one of our favorite scenes. And then with Possessed, I think the last few minutes when he's kind of giving his speech, when he's announcing that he's running for is it Supreme office? Uh,
Yeah. And the
yeah,
flyers are falling
yeah. The
down.
flyers
And yeah.
come down, and Joan Crawford gets to kind of stand up and say her piece, and she acts that scene very well. But again, both of these scenes are kind of like second tier, not on the same level as some of the other ones that we're talking about.
If we didn't have Peter Lorre's speech, if we didn't have the final scene to City Lights, if we didn't have these other really great, Frankenstein, the dad and the daughter, if we didn't have these other great scenes, I think that second tier, those would hold more water. I think
Sure.
because they exist, the other ones unfortunately become more forgettable because of that. The last one I do have is the Public Enemy, and the scene I thought was when he was walking in to kill everyone.
Mm,
Right, James
yeah.
Cagney, he's kind of at his breaking point, and the way they shot it is him walking right into the camera, with the kind of the close up on his face by the time we get to the end. So to me, that was the most impactful scene. Did you have anything else from that movie?
No, I don't. I think I think we talked about how there could have been some more impactful scenes had they done it a little bit more, a little better. Uh, which is the problem with the movie, right? That I'm thinking of scenes that would have made this movie better. So
What
that's
was
it.
the tick? I can't remember now. What was his little tick? What did he keep doing?
James Cagney.
Yeah, what was he doing again?
Oh, geez.
Was it with his hand or something? Or
He hits everybody.
oh
That's right.
yeah,
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 he
right in the
kind of.
face.
Yep, that's right.
That's my dude, James Cagney. For me, it's of all the love I gave the movie M, and I love that final scene. I am forever going to, because to my core, I am a hopeless romantic. At least that's the way I used to be, and I want to keep those parts of me some alive, some well, or somewhere. And Charlie Chaplin did that to me. Whether this movie has anything to do with love, or has anything to do with just human beings existing and acknowledging, someone else's existence. You know what I mean? And how important that is. Whatever the ending is, it hit me and it's impactful. I went with City Lights, the ending final scene.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. That's what I have as my number one as well. I was gonna make sure that we talked about a couple things, and we did. So I'll sit right there with you.
That's our 1931 Oscars, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know what your picks are, but when we put these out on Instagram and whatnot, tell us yours. Debate with us, argue with us, agree with us. Let us know what you think. We move on. 1932, Will, is finally here, my friend. We've discussed a little bit about our movie selection process, okay? How we start, how we find our movies. I always like to start with Wikipedia because, again, I know I get some pushback sometimes from people about Wikipedia being law, but it is the thing that we have chosen as our law in this world. And I always like to start off with, the highest grossing films of the year. And I'll just kind of rattle off. The Sign of the Cross was the highest grossing movie that year with $2.7 million. And then the top 10, all the way down to number 10, was a movie called Horse Feathers, which I believe is a Marx Brothers movie. That got 945,000. So the span there, Will, for the top 10 highest grossing films is 945,000 to 2.7 million. Far away from where we're at now, even if you include inflation, but still, that's a pretty good amount of money for the days, especially during the Great Depression era, right?
Sure. Oh yeah, I mean 5-10 cents a show or whatever. It's probably a little bit more expensive than that now, but it's a good chunk of good chunk of change.
Good chunk of change. Couple things to note as far as what's happening in society in 1932. Obviously, the Great Depression is still kind of, showing its head. Something that's a little different that's taking place on a global scale here, Will, in 1932 is kind of the idea of it's like the rise of let me find it. The rise of totalitarian regimes. Okay.
Yeah.
So now you have Hitler. And what's happening in Germany with the Nazi Party, you have what's happening in Italy with Benito Mussolini and the fascist regime there. And a lot of these kind of dictators are starting to kind of show their head because they're gaining momentum within their country. That does have a film impact for the next 100 years of stories to be told from just this era. World War I ends in 1945. That doesn't mean World War II. Sorry, World War II ends in 1945. That doesn't mean that all of the pain ends in 1945.
Sure. I mean, millions of people lose their lives in those, 5 to 6 years prior, when 1939 Germany invades Poland. There's a lot of pain in these years that travels through generations. People, popular term now called generational trauma that I think people maybe overuse, but it's a real thing because, you've got all these people coming, the people who survive are scarred. So there's a lot of pain in this era, and I don't think we'll see it kind of right away. I think we'll see, some patriotism, some nationalistic tendencies, because whenever you have an era starting, there's a lot of like positive reinforcement of what's going on because you haven't seen the consequences yet. So, the next 10 years, you're going to see a lot of propaganda pop up because you haven't been able to disprove it yet. Right. So that's what era I think we're getting ready to enter.
Dude, you know what's crazy about propaganda is that it's even 100 years later here, it's still so utilized, right? It's you would think with all the technological advancements we have now, you would think we would be so much closer to truth, right? You would think, but we are actually, and with the emergence of artificial intelligence, we are actually further away from it than ever, maybe ever before. Because before, truth would happen and you'd have two hearsay conversations about it. But now we are almost fooled with it used to be picture or, movie is worth 1,000 words or whatever the saying is. It's not anymore because you can manipulate the imagery so easily these days. I saw a video the other day of a guy dancing, and it was like some guy from India, right? So the original video was a guy from India just doing some type of dancing. And for 60 seconds, the face changed, and it was George Clooney. Then it was Bill Clinton. Then it was like 4 or 5 other guys, Arnold Schwarzenegger. And it switched so seamlessly. And they switched the body. And like, you're just thinking, I know what I'm seeing is not real, but man, it'd be hard to tell someone that didn't know any better. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. No, I mean, I'm an old man, so I'm up at 5 o'clock drinking my coffee every morning and watching the local news like someone who's getting ready to retire here. And this I mean, it's an election year, right? So now it's over the last few weeks, it's kind of switched from standard roofing company commercials that you see in the morning to the election propaganda. Like everyone's got something to say, and most doesn't matter who it is really. They're only half truths, right? So
Right.
it still kind of comes down to this word, and why I love movies so much is because a lot of times when you're not trying to say you're telling the truth, you're just trying to find the truth. Is where I kind of look for my what's the word I'm looking for, optimism, right? Because I'm so pessimistic about what people are trying to claim is the truth. So
Yeah, George Carlin, the great comedian, he said that he loves people when they're individuals, but the moment they get into groupthink and he goes, it could be just as small as 2 or as big as 2. That's when they start, you know, selling their individualism for the greater good of the group, and that's when we start losing people. I think that is so true, and he said that damn near almost 20 years ago. So,
yeah,
um, another thing that is interesting is Franklin D. Roosevelt won the election this year in
yeah,
1932 over Hoover. It largely due to the way Hoover was kind of, handling the Great Depression. And this was the first time in 80 years, Will, that a Democrat ended up winning the presidency. And it took something like a Great Depression. Now, a lot of the things that come from the New Deal that FDR proposed, this was a pretty big deal, not just that Democrats won, but it was a very big role for the federal government now in civilian life. And FDR, hugely successful with the New Deal, hugely successful during that time. But it does go back to this idea of how much role should the government have. And that's always going to be kind of an ebb and flow thing throughout generations, right? But I want to ask this one big question, Will. Okay. Because something that's happening during this time in the film world is we're still in pre-Hays Code days. So we're still
yeah.
watching pre-coded films, and we're going to watch them here for another 2 years. And then we're going to see an extreme shift in our movies. And we're going to see them for, I almost want to say, a couple decades. So our
Yeah.
movies are going to kind of, for our taste, is going to take kind of a hit. So I want to ask this question. It's called the one big question of the show. What role should government or third-party entities, governing bodies, have in restricting movies/art in a free society? So it's a loaded question.
Sure.
Just off the top of your head, what is the place? Is it okay for us to have these kind of rating scale of what each movie is for parental guidance, because that's important to
Yeah.
have? Should anything ever be restricted in a free society?
Well, sure. I mean, there should always be some restrictions. But when it comes to art, no, I think it should be pretty much none, pretty much no restriction. I think, should there be ratings on movies? Yes, I think it helps parents guide their kids towards things that they are ready for and away from things that they're not ready for. But should we not make art or restrict art from being made that maybe is not that's R rated or something? No, no, absolutely not. I think the role of government should be to in especially with art is to kind of just make sure that there's a place for it, right? To carve out spaces for it and then let it go. I think that's kind of what we have right now, and it sounds like maybe we're going to run into some issues here in 1934. Is that right? When the
Two
code comes,
years.
yeah. So we're if just to answer your question bluntly, the fill in the blank, I would say none. That's how much role the federal government should have in restricting art.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think it's important to inform the public at large so that we can make conscious decisions for ourselves.
Yeah,
I think a rating system, there's no harm in a rating system at all, right?
yeah,
All that's doing is now, if I was a producer or a studio head or a director, it might be better to get the PG-13 stamp than the R because I might get a bigger payday, whatever. That's
yeah,
that's that's not the righteous thing we're talking about here.
sure,
That's for selfish reasons. But when we're talking about for the righteousness of or the betterment of society, yeah, there's nothing wrong with it with a rating system.
yeah,
When you start telling people what they can show and not show on screen, it's a slippery slope, right? Because who's to say what should be said or seen and what shouldn't be seen? And the moment you restrict one thing, and then there's anything kind of within the vein of that,
mhm,
should you restrict that thing? And then, of course, when you do that, now that umbrella reaches even further, and then more and more things get thrown onto there until we get to a society that now isn't being pushed or isn't seeing things that make them feel uncomfortable or see things that maybe, you know, I don't know that we can make an argument that they should see someone getting their head chopped off,
oh
but
sure,
if there's a compelling narrative about why we're showing someone getting their head chopped off,
yeah,
it should exist and there should be room for it.
yeah, absolutely, and that's the, the there should be a space for the place for the stuff, right? Like that should be the protection that's put around the space so the art can be made. And then it's up to you and to me what's our taste and what we can handle. Like, and I think, trigger warnings are interesting because I think they're important in some cases because, people who have been through something don't need to be exposed to it repetitively. And if they don't want to, they should have a warning for it, right?
Agree.
But
Totally. Yeah.
like that doesn't mean it shouldn't be made, right?
Right.
Like it's just like we need to choose for ourselves what I don't want to say we can handle, but what we are want to be exposed to. And after that, it's just up to us, and that's I don't want other people making that decision for me. Like a timid example of this, I think it was the first episode I mentioned, like I just don't watch anime, right? And
Right.
and that's because it's just not my speed. It's just not for me. So like I cut that off and I say I'm not watching it because it's just not for me. I've tried, it's not for me. We can do that. Doesn't mean
Yeah.
I think anime should be banned. It just means it's not for me. So
It's not for me either. But I will say this: I had to make sure that I didn't ask Will to do Cinema 100 on 100 years of anime. So I'm glad we didn't go down that road. No, I don't think there's much more to say here. We're in agreement pretty much all over the board. Because I totally agree with you. It should be up to me and what I believe. I guess is under my umbrella, my palette of what I should be able to tolerate and taste. And if I don't like something, like I'll give you an example for me. I can't stand like gruesome horror. You know what I mean? Just bones breaking and like Human Centipede. Not for me. The
yeah,
concept was hilarious. I can't I I'm glad it exists for those that like that. I can't sit down and watch that and somehow feel good about myself or even feel I don't want to feel that way
yeah,
because I just don't want to feel that way. So,
sure,
anyways, yeah. So there's room for it. I'm glad it exists for those that need it, but not for me. Um,
yeah,
1932. Couple things to note before we get to our picks. Will is just want to talk about some film debuts. Ingrid Bergman, she makes her debut in 1932. James Ellison. Another person down here that we have is Katharine Hepburn, shows up in 1932 for the first time. And then we get Mae West, which is another big name. She's going to be a mainstay in Hollywood for the longest time after this. So just some notable names right from the 1932 that make their film debut. Couple things of note, too, for those that were born this year. And John Williams, the American film composer, is born in 1932, and he's going to go on to have maybe the most legendary film composition career of maybe any other composer of our time, Wills. I don't know if there's another one that pops off the page to you of all time, right? John Williams, probably the most nominated person in the history of the Oscars. That'd be an interesting thing.
Something in the 70s, I think he's been nominated for like 70 films.
70?
I don't think I'm wrong.
Oh my, dude! Wow, I didn't know that. That's incredible. That's true. That's incredible. Just a couple other names. Elizabeth Taylor is born this
Sorry, I was
year.
off. It's 54.
Oh yeah, just 54. Just 54. Yep. Debbie Reynolds born this year. The lists go on and on. I like to name these just to kind of give you an idea. You know, we'll get to John Williams in about 50 years here, 40 years maybe, but we're gonna get there. So Peter O'Toole, that was the last one. He's a big name that's coming up. So those are that's 1932 in a nutshell on my end. Anything that you wanted to add before we get to our nominees?
No, I'm glad we touched a little bit on like totalitarianism, a little bit of fascism, still an issue today. So I'm just kind of curious if we're going to run into anything here that I'm interested in these next few years to see if we can track down like maybe they're not great, but some propaganda films, maybe one each from Germany and America to kind of compare and contrast. Just something to kind of keep an eye on to see if we can come up with anything there.
Yeah, no, that's interesting because it might not be this year, but they're coming, right? And we're going to get a lot of them, I feel like, because it's going to be a, World War II. Everybody that impacts the whole damn globe. You know what I mean? So movies based on that come from that. It's going to be an interesting kind of 10, 15 years where we're probably going to be inundated with a lot of World War II stories. So.
Sure.
All right, Will. 1932. This is the part where we put our mentions on the table. What do we have? What's your list? Where do you want to start? Tell me your first official draft nomination.
I guess I'll start easy because I think we'll probably both have this one kind of earmarked, mostly to see the predecessor to one of our favorite gangster movies. I'll nominate Scarface, directed by Howard Hawks. It's got led by Paul Mooney. Looks like Boris Karloff shows up in a supporting role here. I thought that was kind of interesting. I'm just interested to see to compare and contrast with the 80s version with our with Tony Montana and we just watched Public Enemy. I want to see if there's any sort of less on the nose moral standing going on here. Like, are we going to see are they going to opening flashcard hey, these guys suck, don't be like these guys, Public Enemy. So, but it's also a well-known movie, so I'm just curious to see this one.
Yeah, an ambitious and nearly insane violent gangster climbs the ladder of success in the mob, but his weakness proves to be his downfall. This movie on Letterboxd is rated 3.8. I think the highest movie of that year was rated 4.1. So it's within kind of the scope of what people were looking at that year. So this movie's going to, I have a feeling just because, we've seen the predecessor or we've seen the successor, we know how outrageous that one is. I'm curious when we watch this one, if, how it's going to compare. I'm with you. As a matter of fact, I don't even think we should debate it. I think since we both agree, I think it should be our first draft pick in the year 1932. Will, do you have any issues with that?
No, I'm on board.
1932, first draft pick, the movie Scarface.
All right.
What category are we putting this in? This would be a crime, drama, thriller?
Yeah, I think that's right. Crime, drama, gangster film.
Gangster film. Okay, Will, I'm going to go with right away a movie that I'm picking, and I'm not sure that this made your list or not. I went with a film called I Am a Fugitive from a Chain Gang.
Mm.
And I only seen this show up on one list, and that was Letterboxd. It was the number 2 highest grossing film, or I'm sorry, the number 2 highest rated film on the list. I'm going to read you the information. Directed by Mervyn Leroy. It's 92 minutes long, but I must admit I got sucked in by the tagline here. So, 6 sticks of dynamite that blasted his way to freedom and woke America's conscience. A World War I veteran dreams of becoming a master architect evaporate in the cold light of economic realities. Things get even worse when he's falsely convicted of a crime and sent to work on a chain gang. I want to nominate this film just because it sounds to me, when we talk about and woke America's conscience, sounds to me like there's something greater at play here, other than just, somebody, whether he's falsely accused or correctly accused. It's one of those moral lines where America and the public at large gets to debate it. And I think those are always the best kind of movies.
Oh yeah, no, this is definitely on my list. I also want to just mention that Paul Mooney is in both of these movies. He's the lead actor in both Scarface and I Am a Fugitive from a Chain Gang. So I'm kind of curious to see. It seems like maybe we've got the start of something here, because these are both well regarded. Nominated for this one was nominated for Best Picture, Best Actor, and Best Sound at the Academy Awards. So we're checking one of our boxes here too, to kind of make sure we're not losing touch of 1932's vision of a good movie. And I have a note here. What a year for Paul Mooney, who apparently is a Red, right? So in like 15 years, he's going to be getting exiled from Hollywood, because both these movies kind of, especially this one, kind of seems like it has some social commentary going on. So.
Yeah, and I just think anything that can make us come to the table and debate something, whether this movie does that or not, it feels like that's what we're getting ready to get into. So I'm just interested. Again, this is a crime drama. So what I'm thinking is it's an early nomination if we decide to go with it, for a double feature possibly. Or at least note it, and let's just see what other ones we nominate throughout the rest of this year.
Okay, that sounds good to me.
All right, what is your second pick?
All right, I'm going to nominate a movie. I think it is German. It's Shanghai Express. It stars Marlene Dietrich and Clive Brook, and it looks like Anna May Wong is in this as well. I don't know if you remember, but we talked about Piccadilly a little bit. I think it was 2 years ago as a possible nominee. She was the star of that film. It sounds like she kind of gets cast out of Hollywood and kind of makes her way over to Europe to start making films. So just kind of curious to see, how this movie, to get a foreign film in here. Essentially, the tagline here is Marlene Dietrich's character gets on the Shanghai Express and runs into a former love, and hijinks ensue.
I love the word hijinks. It always makes me feel like, oh, what's gonna happen? Whoa,
So I think it's a little bit more serious than that. So hijinks was probably the wrong choice of word, but happenings occur. How about that?
I'm with you. Look, Marlene Dietrich. She's someone that I thought. Remember, Marlene Dietrich was in the movie Morocco, and there was infamous scenes in that movie, even if the movie itself fell short. Again, Joseph von Sternberg, the director of this film, he directed Morocco. So if we were to go with this film, we're really giving both of them kind of a redo, right? A chance to kind of like say, hey, look, we didn't love what you put together the first time. Maybe Marlene Dietrich doesn't sing in this movie, so Will can have a little bit better time than he did in the first one. But the point being, if we go this route, we're giving them another chance because we didn't love what they put together the first time. Maybe we can see if they kind of grew from it, or if maybe just the writing was so bad in the first one and the collaboration in this effort is better. Hopefully we can get a more tolerable piece of art here. So Shanghai Express is on the list now.
All right.
We've drafted one, but we have 2 movies there. My next movie, Will, is a movie directed by a gentleman called Ernst Lubitsch, which I believe this is the kind of the time period where Ernst Lubitsch apparently has like 3 or 4 movies that come out in the next 2 or 3 years. He's kind of all over Hollywood. Story is his paradise became a merry hell. Thief Gaston Manescu and pickpocket Lily are partners in crime and love. Kind of a Bonnie and Clyde story that's going to take place here. Now, we're getting to a place where we're 4 deep now with dramas, right? So we got to kind of keep that in mind. Letterboxd did rate this one at a 4.1, so that's a high tout from that year. 2 crooks decide to combine their criminal talents to rob their employer. Under the alias of Monsieur Laval, Gaston uses his position as Mariette's personal secretary to become close to her. So just an interesting kind of Bonnie and Clyde tale that I don't think we've really seen. Criminals that, again, we've seen the gangster films in which we're rooting for, but it's now we're going to kind of bring in a female character into that. And I'm just curious of the dynamic of that, I guess.
Yeah. And the female lead, Miriam Hopkins, I was kind of got a note here because I also had this on my list. She was a 2-time nominee, one for Best Supporting and one for Best Actress. So not for this film, but in the future. So it'd be interesting to kind of see, like, if we were to choose this one, just kind of see how she is as an actress and get some feel for it. And maybe we'll see her again in the future.
Sounds good. I'm going to have you do something right now, and maybe this is something we should do going forward.
Uh-oh.
Give me, of what you have so far, give me your pick. Like, everything, we should always have one pick, like your passion project, your passion movie, something that you want to bring to the table. Tell me what you have. Okay.
Do you want me to just mention? I really want to watch Shanghai Express.
Okay.
That's kind of,
if that's what you want.
Yeah, that's kind of the. Yeah.
I was just gonna say that we'll go the route where I can't veto it. I can't make an argument against it. I'm not gonna try to talk you out of it. There's something in you that is wanting to see this movie, so we should watch it.
Yeah, no, I'm really interested in this. You kind of touched on it. We've got a second outing here with Sternberg and Dietrich to kind of see, like, they do a few more movies together too. I think they're famous people in this time period. So just want to make sure Morocco wasn't something we were missing. And also I'm pretty sure it won for cinematography. So having it take place on a train and winning for cinematography, it just kind of feels like there might be some technical expertise going on in this film, and I don't want to miss it.
Yeah, it's like, what possibly could they have done in a train, just in one environment, to make it worthy of that? Or again, is this the Oscars just being crazy because they've been kind of all over the place, or is this kind of hold something? So I'm with you. Yeah. I wanted to put mine out there. Okay. There is a movie called The Grand Hotel. Okay. I don't know if this made your list or not, but it's a group of very different individuals staying at a luxurious hotel in Berlin, and they deal with each other of their respective dramas. Now, this has a huge cast. Greta Garbo, John Barrymore, Joan Crawford, Lionel Barrymore. Just names that we've seen already. Also, we get a Greta Garbo appearance, which I don't think we've had yet to this point. And she's somebody, and she's got top billing in this movie. But the thing that sold me was there was a person on Letterboxd that, let me get it up here. Where is it at? I just want to make sure if it's one of the top ones, I'll read it. If not a big deal. Basically, the idea was, if this movie's made after the pre-code haze, it hurts this movie tremendously. There's so many things that are done in this film that help the narrative of this story because of the great detail in which they choose to show. That's how it's been sold to me. So I'm hoping that it lives up to that review because I bought it.
Okay. Yeah. I hadn't really looked at this one. I hadn't even seen it really on Letterboxd. So I'm definitely curious. I'm wondering how much relation this might have to Grand Budapest Hotel, right? Wes Anderson's movie from roughly 10 years, 8, 10 years ago. It kind of has that same the hotel struggle through worry, scandal, and heartache. It's kind of the same theme. So it'd be interesting. I like Grand Budapest Hotel, so it might be fun to kind of see the comparisons there too.
Yeah, and what I like about this movie is, again, I could be bored to tears in this. You know, it's an hour and 52 minutes. It's a little long in the tooth. It sounds like it's going to be very, thick with relationship drama. But when done well and the writing's done well, that's some of the most intriguing stuff. Because we all live relationships with other human beings. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
I this movie's a 3.5 on Letterboxd. I was wrong. It's a 3.5, which I think makes it even more interesting because a 3.5 to someone could be someone's 3 and could be someone's 4. So
Right.
which end of this will we be on? I'm going to put this down as my passion pick. We have 3 movies then for sure, with a couple others that we have there. So Grand Hotel, Shanghai Express, and Scarface. So let's keep filling out this list.
All right. I suppose it's my turn here. I'm looking something up real quick. I just want to make sure I have it. So the next movie I'm going to nominate is called A Farewell to Arms. So it's a World War I love affair where two people from different countries find themselves in the same place, and they get torn apart by the war. And I'm just kind of curious to see what this kind of, we've seen films like this more recently, where you've got two people that are torn apart by something. A lot of times we see it with like work. So this, I mean, technically kind of work here. um, but yeah, it sounds like it did pretty well at the Academy Awards. So nominated for a couple of different things. So just kind of curious here. It's got Gary Cooper in it, so we could continue the Morocco theme here, where we get Marlene Dietrich and Gary Cooper in separate films, and maybe they work better separately. So
Hey, and you're missing a big name in this movie. Adolphe
oh
Menjou.
yeah, yeah, what I write down here, Mr. Supporting Actor.
And we
Yeah,
like Adolphe. He does a good job.
yeah.
He was in
Oh, good.
Morocco. He was in Morocco.
Yep.
Um, and one interesting thing, did you happen to see who one of the writers is of this?
I did not.
Ernest Hemingway.
Oh, interesting.
So
Okay.
there's a lot of things going for this movie.
Yeah.
This is going to be tough for us because a couple of things. Of all the movies we've picked so far, this is number 6. They're all that drama, romance, war, not necessarily
Yeah.
all war, but there's all drama and romance seem to be in crime, seem to be our 3. So we're very deep in dramas right now.
Sure.
Which again, if those are the best movies of the year and that's where we go, that's where we go. I'm just saying if there's anything that we can do to maybe kind of put a little bit of diversity in this, maybe we should consider that. But we don't have to. So
Okay. Yeah. Well, that might
Farewell
have to
to
come from you.
Arms. 3.4 on Letterboxd, directed by Frank Borzage, or Borzage, if I'm saying that correctly or not. So we move on. Let me bring up my next pick here, or
Okay.
nomination, whatever way you want to look at it. All right. The last one I have here. No, I'm sorry. I've got a couple more. Sorry. Again, another same director we talked about, Ernst Lubitsch. This is Broken Lullaby, 76 minutes long. This is the tagline: honor thy father and thy mother, but how about our enemy's parents? How about his sweetheart? How about the girl we love? A young French soldier in World War I is overcome with guilt when he kills a German soldier who, like himself, is musically gifted, each having attended each other's lives, and yada yada yada. It goes on and talks about it. But basically it's called Broken Lullaby. The idea here is it's done in like a French poetry style type thing.
Hmm.
I wanted to put it on there. It sounded different. It sounded interesting. Again, doesn't necessarily have to be drafted, but I thought it was worth mentioning.
Yeah, it's the second Ernst Lubitsch from this year. Also, it's got Lionel Barrymore as the main character. One of them,
Yeah,
anyways.
Lionel Barrymore. Yep.
Okay, so yeah, it seems like everybody's kind of crisscrossing at this time. Yeah, no, this is definitely sounds interesting. You can always talk me into a good foreign film, so I like this ad.
Again, drama. It's there. I
Yeah,
don't know. I don't know where you're going with your picks, but it's there. So it's just
yeah,
something that we might have to just, it just is what it is. I mean,
yeah.
let me just acknowledge a comedy duo that exists. I looked at a couple times, but every time I looked at them, they were making a lot of shorts. But I think we should acknowledge them. There's a Laurel and Hardy. Have you seen these guys pop up on your pages anywhere?
Yeah, no,
They're kind
the
of a
names are
comedy
familiar.
group.
Yep, names are familiar.
Okay, so they've been popping up quite a bit on a lot of the films, but they made a lot of films during this time that were like 22 minutes, 29 minutes. I just don't know that we need to venture down that road, but it sounds like we had the Marx Brothers, we have Charlie Chaplin, we have Laurel and Hardy, just names that we should maybe even just recognize as making an effort during this time.
Yeah, sure. And I mean, you mentioned Marx Brothers have a movie this year too that was pretty high grossing. So I don't want to lose sight of the popular films, right? I don't want to rely too heavily on like award winning or critically acclaimed, but I also don't. I kind of looked at the Marx Brothers as a consideration, but it just didn't feel like we needed to watch that this year. So I'm okay with the heavy dramas. I think that's kind of where we're going to end up a lot of times. So as of right now, I'm okay with leaving the comedies off.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Um, I believe you're up, my friend.
Oh, okay. This is actually the last one on my list. I didn't have a ton for this year. I was kind of thinking that we would have a few crossovers, and I was hoping you'd bring a few to the board because I think 8 movies we did last year was it ended up being 8 movies because we watched 2 double features. I think that's probably we should probably try to keep it under that. So I was trying to keep it at like 5 or 6. Um, so my last one here is called Freaks. I don't know if you saw this at all in your research here, but essentially taglines a circus's beautiful trapeze artist agrees to marry the leader of a sideshow performer, but his deformed friends discover she is only marrying him for his inheritance. And initially I was kind of like, this might not be exactly 2024 speed. But one of the reviews I was kind of reading through on Letterbox just kind of mentioned how it's progressive even for the 2020s. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I just get a little worried when you start dealing with people who aren't have deformities of some sort or disabilities of some sort, and I was a little concerned, but I just wanted to make sure we put it out there because it does sound like that's not the point of the movie.
Yeah. Who's the director of this one?
Uh, Director is Todd Browning.
Todd Browning. It's a gentleman that did Dracula. So
That's right.
we would have a repeat of him as well if we went that route.
Yeah.
Again, the movie's made.
Yeah.
It's up to us to watch and give a fair critique from the 2024 member in time. 3024 comes out and somebody sits down and does a podcast and they're doing this and they happen to come across what we said and think we're completely insensitive to what they did or whatnot. Then so be it. We're kind of time stamping our stuff. So these things
Sure.
have a place because they've been made and we should watch them and talk about them. So that's my take on that. So I didn't actually make a choice on my last pick. I wanted to kind of see where our picks went in accordance to the highest grossing films of the year. Okay. So
Okay.
as of right now, we have one movie from the highest grossing films of the year 1932. We have the movie Grand Hotel, which was fifth highest grossing that year,
Okay.
of all those movies. Sign of the Cross. Looks like that is the highest grossing movie of that year. Cecil B. DeMille, which is a very popular director at the time,
Yep.
decided that he was going to make, it looks like, I'm assuming, some type of war movie. I could be wrong. I don't have a tagline here on the on Wikipedia, but that was the highest grossing film of the year. There's some other ones here. The Kid from Spain. Will, are you on Wikipedia right now?
I am on Letterboxd.
You're on Letterboxd. Type in the
Yeah.
movie Emma. I just thought the cover looked interesting. It's from director Clarence Brown. If you can find me a tagline, that'd be great, because I typed it into IMDb and I can't find it.
All right. Got it here. Clarence Brown. Okay. Familiar with him. When Fred Smith's wife dies in childbirth, Emma Thatcher, who has been nanny to the couple's three children, cares also for the family's new addition. Fred becomes rich and successful. Then he and Emma marry. When Fred dies, his will becomes the source of trouble between the children and Emma.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I read originally, and I couldn't find it again. Thank you for that.
Okay.
So I just thought that was interesting. I just thought it was an interesting. I saw the cover and I was like, okay, she doesn't look like Greta Garbo. She doesn't look like, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
whenever you put something like that, and for it to gross well, what's the Letterboxd score that it has?
3.4.
Little lower than I wanted it to. So anyways, I just thought that maybe,
To be
of the
fair,
time.
that's only. It looks like it's less than or right around 200 ratings, so it's not like it's been widely watched.
Sure, fair enough. I just thought I thought, of all the highest grossing films from that year, this one looked to be the most interesting for our taste. So I just wanted to, at the very least, acknowledge it and put it on the list.
Okay, and you could probably talk me into it anyway. It's only 72 minutes, so if it's bad, it's short.
Well, let's see. One thing I really want to make sure we do is, if we have first-time directors on here that are worthy of watching, I think we need to do that. That's kind of something that can help narrow down some of ours.
Sure.
Anything else like that you think is worthy of our, discussion, that we want to make sure that we're kind of still sticking to the mission statement of the show?
Sure. I mean, the Sign of the Cross might be worth watching. It's, Cecil B. DeMille is the Ten Commandments. I mean, with Charlton Heston, like, I've probably seen that movie 3 or 4 times just because it used to be on. Like, I want to say, like, if you woke up on Saturday morning and you missed the cartoons, like, that would be the movie that was on. So yeah, I mean, that might be something worth watching, because, I mean, he did Cleopatra as well. So you might be able to make that argument here.
Yeah, I think there's an argument to be made. My pushback would be, you just named 2 movies that are more, more renowned than this movie here. So I think we're going to have a time and a place for a Cecil B. DeMille. And as excited as I am to kind of jump into new directors and directors of old that, have weight and, and, whatever the words are, I don't know that we have to jump into this one.
Sure.
But we can. I put it down. So here's what I have. I'm missing one that you nominated. But I have this so far. Scarface, we've got it locked in. Shanghai Express, we have it locked in. The Grand Hotel, have it locked in. Then that leaves us with I'm a Fugitive from a Chain Gang, Trouble in Paradise, Broken Lullaby, Freaks, Emma. What was the one that you nominated that I'm missing?
A Farewell to Arms.
A Farewell to Arms. That's the, yes, okay. Farewell to Arms. So here's what I would think. I think it's fair to say we could put on I'm a Fugitive from a Chain Gang. Fair?
Agreed.
Okay. That leaves us at 4. You made a comment about the double features and the amount of movies we watched in 1931. Where are you wanting to go in 1932?
Well, I mean, I think so if we have 4 right now, right?
We have 4.
Okay, so we have two that we're already thinking as our double feature. So if we want to kind of make that a theme that we're doing, I think Scarface, I Am a Fugitive from a Chain Gang, that gives us the double feature. So now we should be thinking about maybe three other movies
Okay.
at this point.
Okay.
But I don't know where you're at.
You know, it's just one thing that I guess the thing that I had the hardest part about this year is I know nothing about any of these movies, right?
Sure.
I've never heard of them. I've never, you know what I mean? Outside of, so where I'm at is I got the Greta Garbo pick. I wanted to see her in a film. This was a highly touted film, and I really want to see where it goes with the pre-code days. We've got
Sure.
that. So, you know, Trouble in Paradise is a critique, or like you said, it's a critical favorite. It was on both of our lists. I think we should, whenever we get crossover like that and we agree, we should put it on the list.
Okay.
Which then means if we are going two more, I would be okay with. I honestly, I would be okay with any of the remaining four. And if you wanted to mix up genre, I guess that would leave Freaks to give us something different. But again, I want to watch the best films of the year, and Freaks was on that list, so it's up to you.
Yep.
But I think we should definitely lock in Trouble in Paradise, and I'll let you. That gives us 5, and I'll let you kind of make the next choice. That we have right now: Broken Lullaby, Freaks, Emma, and A Farewell to Arms. So wherever you were looking at going there.
Oh, I don't know. Oh man, this one's tough because I'm not sure, right? I don't really have an inclination either way. If I were to just say you choose one from your two and I choose one from my two that I have left on the board here, I would probably end up choosing Freaks.
Okay.
I feel like with Todd Browning, you kind of look at his filmography and it's a lot of horror. So I'm interested to see if there's some horror elements here. It might be able to kind of mix it up a little bit. Farewell to Arms, I feel a little bad not watching just because we've got Gary Cooper here, and it won 2 Oscars. So just kind of curious to see, oh man. The interesting part here is Shanghai Express won for cinematography the next year. And Farewell to Arms won for cinematography the 1932. So if we were to watch both of those back to back, we would have 2 kind of technical.
What were the best picture? What were the best pictures winners for that year? For both years, 1932, but on both sides of the coin.
Yeah, we did. Give me 2 seconds.
Because I'm not sure we even discussed those, and I do
saved at this point.
Yeah, and I do think it's worth. We do need to.
1930, we need 90 or 33. Why is it not the top one?
Yeah, it's always challenging with the Academy Awards
film.
For these.
Come on. Sorry, this is taking a lot longer than I thought it would.
No, you're totally fine. We've got Scarface, which is Howard Hawks. That's a first
picture.
That's a first-time director we haven't seen yet. I Am Fugitive. Right? Can you hear me, Will?
Oh, geez. Did I lose you?
Can you hear me now? Uh-oh. I think we've lost Will, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to take a pause here, and we'll come right back.
Oh, no.
Did you find it?
Yeah. So best picture in 1933 was Cavalcade.
Okay.
I didn't write this one down. If maybe it was a little bit of a. Oh no, I'm freezing again. I think it's probably my.
Your tabs.
So let me.
If it's your tabs, hop off and I'll do it then.
Okay. Yeah,
all right.
I'll try my phone so we don't freeze this time.
Okay, what was the first half of 1932? What was the best picture winner? Not Calvin. Go ahead.
Yeah, it was called Cavalcade.
Okay, Cavalcade.
So yeah, and then 1934 best picture.
Cavalcade movie. I must not even be spelling it correctly then. Cavalcade.
Yeah, so CAVALCADE. Yep.
Okay, so according to Wikipedia and Wikipedia's law, they're saying it was released in April 15th of 1933. So by rule, it does not make our list. So we'll have to look at that for next year. With what we currently have, I think Freaks I'm okay with. So right now we would have double feature Scarface and I Am a Fugitive from Chain Gang. Okay. Then we have Shanghai Express, Trouble in Paradise, Grand Hotel, Freaks is on there. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we want to go one more. I'm willing to go A Farewell to Arms because we have Shanghai Express, which the director there is Joseph von Sternberg. So we have one from him. We have Todd Browning, which is Freaks. That's a repeat director. Yep. Then we have The Grand Hotel, which is directed by it's an adaptation. Okay, so we have about 3 or 4 new directors that are joining the fray here. I'm totally okay with that. I want to go A Farewell to Arms, Will, because I want to see an Ernest Hemingway written movie.
Sure.
You okay with that?
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Okay, so that means Broken Lullaby, which had an interesting concept, and is Emma, which had an interesting concept. I was not overly in love with either one of them. They might both be better movies. They might not. I just don't know anything about them. So that means our final 6 for this year are A Farewell to Arms, Freaks, Grand Hotel, Trouble in Paradise, Shanghai Express, I Am Fugitive from a Chain Gang, which, by the way, of all the things that movie has going for it, apparently, it's got the worst name of them all. And then Scarface. So I'm interested and excited about jumping into 1932 with you. We do need to find out what our first film of the year is going to be. So
Scarface. That's kind of what I was doing and why I had so many tabs open.
Okay, Scarface. What year did that come out, or when did that come out?
Yeah, so that was March 31st.
March 31st, 1932. We don't have anything sooner than that?
We do not. Nope. The next one would be Grand Hotel, which is April 12th.
All righty. Sounds good. I know we'll fill out the rest and put it on Instagram and whatever for everybody that's paying attention. But yeah, so we're going to start off with a double feature then, Will.
Yeah. No, I'm super curious about this Paul Mooney guy. To be in both of these movies in the same year, it might end up being some next level stuff if both of these are, really good. So.
Yeah, and just to give you a little bit on him, he lived to be 71 years of age. He was, looks like he was born in 1895, went until 1967. Was an American stage and film actor from Chicago. And then, Mooney often played powerful characters, such as his lead role in Scarface in 1932. So we're really going to get an idea of what he's capable of with this kind of back-to-back, because we're going to do a Paul Mooney double feature on Cinema 100. He does win the Academy Award for Best Actor. Well, it says here, Mooney appeared in 22 films and was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Actor 5 different times. So it seems like he's got the chops, and I'm excited to see exactly what he's going to bring to the table.
For sure.
So, all right. You guys know the drill. That's Will and I, 1932. You guys need to keep following us where you can, engage where you can, and then most importantly, just keep watching movies. And Will and I will see you next week.
All right. We'll see you guys.